There we go. This meeting is being recorded. So thank you all for joining us here today. Honestly, it will be more of kind of an improvisation style um, of a meeting. And we're going to discuss all kinds of issues that seem to be the most crucial in terms of language teaching online. And what we have is several people who have taught online, who taught language courses online, and that one of them is myself. I taught beginners German online with 40 something people over the summer, 6 hours of face-to-face instruction per week. Wendy, why don't you tell us what course you taught and how that went?
Sure. I taught the introductory Italian course, and we had triple the enrollment we normally do. We had almost 60 students in that class this summer. So that course was delivered asynchronously it was blended, I should say, because the grammar and culture lectures were asynchronous, but we had a weekly meetup with the students, and we had film viewings that were streamed during some of these reserved hours. So the students were expected to keep hours free in their schedule, and they had testing that was also timed at particular times in the schedule. So they had a 2-hour test 4 times throughout the term. And yeah, it was an interesting adventure. I had actually a much better experience with it than I thought I would, and I really enjoyed the Zoom meetings with them. The
Awesome.
only thing just to add, the only thing I will say about the Zoom meetings with the students is that even though there were almost 60 students in the class, the weekly Zoom meetings, which were not obligatory, so I didn't assign a mark for that. I wasn't sure how to go about doing that just yet. I wanted to try some things out first. About 10 of them would show up each week for that. Yeah.
And then I think we have Anne, who was also willing to share her experiences. You taught German online, right?
Hi, yes. And we had to do it in an asynchronous fashion because we had to throw everything together at the very last minute. We had basically 2 days to prepare everything once the school shut down. So that was an adventure. So I'm really actually very excited about teaching synchronously. I attended a summer camp for online teachers through UTM a couple of weeks ago. And so that information from those sessions is what I'll be sharing today.
All right. So why don't you can see my screen here, right? I'm sharing my keynote with you. And that is one of the problems that you will be running into. I don't want you to see all this stuff that's not exactly my slide. You don't need to see what's coming up, and you don't need to see the formatting bar and so on. And with the keynote, I can't do that. If my only option is to go full screen. And that means that on my screen, I cannot see anything else, not the participants list, not the chat, not your videos. So that is when the second monitor comes in really handy. So, why don't we switch around points number 1 and 2? And I'm sorry, before I forget, our chair, Magda Stroinska, she will be joining us, but right now she is in a different meeting. So she wanted me to welcome everybody on her behalf as well. So she'll be here shortly. So there we go. Greetings from Magda. So our first point is software for synchronous teaching. And by the way, feel free to interrupt me and let me know if you want to share your experiences and so on. This is more of a round table than a webinar and so on. So software for synchronous teaching, I'll just take the lead here and say that I'm aware of 3 pieces of software that most people are using, and they are Zoom, WebEx, and Microsoft Teams. I am using Zoom. I think I learned the functionality and I'm happy with it, but other people prefer Microsoft Teams or WebEx. I understand that they can do these 3 different pieces of software can do exactly the same thing, but they do it a little bit differently. So depending on what you like, I simply chose Zoom for no reason, and I learned how it works, and I'm going to be using it from now on. If anybody wants to chime in and share their experiences with something with software for synchronous teaching.
I will tell you one thing, Nikolai. My daughter had to do online courses for her last semester this year, and she said to me, they tried all 3. Most of the students like the Zoom. Well,
actually, before I started teaching my summer German course, I I enrolled in an online Spanish course just to see what it feels like to be a student and learn a language that I don't know. And they were using Zoom, and that's where I stole most of the ideas from. There we go. So that is software for synchronous teaching. I understand that some of you will be trying out asynchronous teaching, and Wendy did that, or Wendy is doing a blended course, so it's partially synchronous. So Wendy, do you have any comments for number one?
Yes. As I said, I had a really good experience with the asynchronous, and
I'm frozen.
so I uploaded I'm probably getting off topic here, but I uploaded all of my videos to YouTube. And I had been doing that for a couple of years because the course was the students wouldn't really need the closed captioning because most of what's on the slide is what's being said. I was really careful about that. But I didn't have students saying, oh, what did I miss? Right. So I think it mitigated a lot of that extra, I hate to say this, but that the distracting communication from students that aren't following along, because in the end, it's really up to them to go and look at the materials. And then they were always prepared for the office hour. So those who wanted to come to the office hour, and again, 10 students out of 60. I had a workshop with the Arts and Sci program the day before yesterday, and I had mentioned that to them, and many of them said that that was actually really excellent for something that wasn't obligatory. So to have 10 out of 60, they thought that that was actually very good. So to have 10 students that were very engaged to come in, these are the ones that really just wanted to do the extra practice work. If I assign a participation mark for that now, then I can up that, and I can really use that time to do review, but I didn't have to go through and repeat lessons or anything like that. So I found that to be really useful. YouTube also allows the students to slow down the audio, which is also nice too, especially for foreign language. So I had a good experience, and I'm looking to put most of my materials asynchronously, because the reality is when I've got over a certain number of students, and I don't necessarily need to stop in between and ask, I can do a 20-minute lecture. In my experience.
So my question is this, my thought was, so, we're electives. My course is an elective. If I were to do that, to put the recordings on and so on and so forth, they could wait till the last minute, then not have enough time, because they do that with my online exercises anyways. And there's quite a few of them that don't end up finishing all their online exercises. So that's my fear, is that if I do even my lectures asynchronously, I'm afraid that they're going to wait and wait and wait till last minute, because it is an elective, and then not get it done. And then I'm doing them a disservice. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Can I respond to that? Sorry.
Yeah.
The first thing is it is an elective for most students, okay? But it's not an elective for those who are in our program, right? So those who have to have language requirements, but I mean, these are very few and far between, right? If you think about the numbers, and I'm thinking about Spanish, you've got pretty healthy numbers in your courses. So I get that. The other thing too is that if you have an associated quiz, and the quiz is based on the content within that lecture, sometimes I would even put dictation material. So I have a textbook that I wrote myself, and in this textbook I have they have lots of fill in the blank stuff that they have to follow along with the lecture, and they fill things in as they're doing it. Okay. If they don't do that, and then they come to the online quiz, and the quiz says, enter in the following the following words from such and such a lecture on page whatever of your textbook, they can't do it. So it's set up in such a way that there are due dates. So okay. Each lecture shows they have access to the lectures throughout the entire term from the onset of the course. Okay, but the quizzes close at a certain time. And what I did is I opened the quizzes up on the first day of classes, so they can look at all of those quizzes. I call them quizzes, but what it really is online homework. Just that because Avenue likes to use the word quiz for everything, I kept it at that. And there's another reason for that too. I found out through SAS that when you have it as marked as quiz and rather than assignment, the students can't ask for an extension on it. As another little, there are a whole bunch of things about SAS I can add later on.
That's an interesting topic.
Yes, I had actually a lot of SAS students in my class this term, and I feel that I was pretty good at mitigating some of the problems, because remember, I'm coming in to this course from a slightly different perspective, because this course had been blended already for 2 years, right? So I just added in extra, and I just made it more online. So I was at an advantage, and I was ready to take it in that direction, maybe a little bit more than others had been, because I'd already been doing this. So I recognize that, I wouldn't expect others to have all of the, extra materials that I have prepared. Now, like the course, it can't run itself. Like there's no way a course can run itself, because I have to be in there marking things, and that hourly office hour, or that weekly office hour, I think for many of them gave them a sense of engagement, and I got some good feedback about that. But SAS said that they really thought that my course was very accessible, and they appreciated that very much. And I think it cut down on a lot of the confusion from some of the students, and the necessity to kind of tailor other materials to specific students, because everything was already ready that way.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So I didn't mean to be long-winded.
It's good to know. It's good to know, because that was a concern for me, maybe because I do have a lot of students. I have over 100, right, that I can potentially have in my class. So I want them all to come. I want them all to do their work, and I can't. It's like herding cats usually. So I don't want to be doing that online.
So what happened in my course, I had 43 people in my German class, and I made participation obligatory. They showed up to classes, and it went fine, almost all of them. Of course, you have some who never show up, but out of those 43, I had 37 who were regularly there. And by the end of my class, I knew about a dozen of them by face and a couple dozen by voice. I knew who was talking to me, even without looking at their videos. So it worked out surprisingly well. So don't get me wrong, it's nowhere near face-to-face teaching. It's incomparable. They're two different worlds, and I would teach face-to-face. I would choose that anytime over teaching online, but we don't have a choice right now. Also, running a little bit aside, I just want to share a different part of my screen here with you. I just want to show what I did in terms of recording the lectures. Here we go. So this is my YouTube channel, and I recorded each class that I taught. So the recordings are a little bit shorter because you try to stop the recording when they're doing an exercise or working in little groups. So what you see, the actual classes were longer, but they had access to all of these recordings. They're set, I shared them as unlisted, so only people with the link could actually view the recordings. And here we go. Here are all the classes that I did, and I even provided some instructions for the final exams and some audio exercises for them for the final exam. That actually didn't work out, and I can tell you later why it didn't work out. But let's go back to our agenda. We only have an hour and a half.
Nikolai, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
It's Eugenia. It's actually for you and Wendy the same. What happens to these YouTube videos? Are they, you mentioned the link, but would I be able to access these YouTube videos?
If I send you a link,
your name?
No, you have to have a link. Then I share the link with the students. So I pretty much create a little page where I say, here is the recording for today's class, and here are the slides. And then they click on the link. So if they can share that link with other people, then everybody who has the link will be able to access them. But they're not searchable. You can't find them. You have to have my link.
Okay.
All right. If we have no other comments, and I know we only have so many minutes for each of the items, teaching materials, number 2. I ended up going the same way as Wendy. I pretty much put together my course materials, and I know for sure that Anne is using a textbook that does have an electronic component. And is that correct?
Yes, it is. So students can access online materials as well. And I'll be posting links, or I've actually already started posting links on Avenue, where students can have access to extra review materials, listening exercises, videos, all that stuff. So it works out very nicely that way.
Mm-hmm. So I think it is crucial to select some materials that do have online components, and we have instructors of, for example, Farsi and Mandarin. I'm not sure if there are accessible texts that are available in electronic formats. Narcisse and Hector? So those are the people who I know, but maybe there are more people in the same situation. Please tell us.
Yeah.
Nicola, I didn't get your question. Did you mean like the textbook, if it is accessible online or not?
Yes.
Yes, my textbook is accessible online, but not the one, so there is a copyright. So if they want to download this for free, they have access to it. I asked, I am in touch with the authors of the book. So they give me, so when my students pay for the book, they can also have like access to the online version. I'm not sure if that can happen this semester or not, but there is a free version online for my text.
Okay, so I guess that will be a major condition for our language instruction, and quite a challenge, right? To find a text that is available online. So if, do we have any comments or any?
Yes, I have a question that, do we have to make our course material like available online? Because as I'm checking the textbook that I'm going to use, it it has an online part. Like you can download the audio. Yeah, the downloadable chapter workbook pages provide handwriting practice. Yes, they are part of that's online, but it doesn't say that it's completely online.
I
So
can tell you right away, Hector, that
yeah,
a lot of the students will
uh-huh.
not have the text in front of them. They will tell you,
Okay.
but they will not.
Okay, so it's a good idea for me to switch the textbook then.
I don't know, and this is meant as a
Okay.
roundtable discussion. I would be very cautious if I couldn't make sure that they have access to those materials, because well, we know our students, they think they're the smartest people on earth and they can outsmart us anytime, and
Yeah.
I would be very careful with that.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll just make them to purchase. I'll just make them purchase the online version. It does have the online version, it's a web app. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll probably do that. Yeah.
All right. So did we cover the second item on the agenda, or do we need some more? Is there more?
Yeah, I have a question. I also decided that I'm gonna switch the textbooks, because I've been using the the printed version of the textbook. Now I found a different textbook which is online. It's actually under a Creative Commons license, so it's free. And I've been in touch with a couple of my future students, and they said that they'd rather have a printed version of this of the textbook because it's easier for them. So I contacted the bookstore and I told them that and actually, in fact, this textbook has a printed version as well. It's of course you have to buy it, and the rest of it is completely open and free. So I don't know, because it's. I might have about 70 students in my class, but I don't know how many of them are going to want to buy this book.
That's
so
right.
it's really a hard decision. I don't know how many books I have to order, for this class, 10 or 12.
And how does it work during the pandemic? Do you still order them through the bookstore? Because if they're physically not here.
Yeah, no, so I ordered my books, but Katya, I gave them, I gave the bookstore all the information because they had 3 different versions. They had just printed, they had a choice between printed and electronic, and then they just had the electronic. Okay, so they had the 3 different choices. And I gave that to them, let them do, the bookstore told me to give them whatever choices were available.
But are they required to buy the books through the bookstore and to physically go on campus to pick them up?
No,
They
no.
have a choice, actually. They have a choice. They can either pay by, I think it's credit card on a website that the campus store has set up, or they can go in person and pick up in a kind of curbside pickup. So they have a choice between those two.
Because honestly, I didn't go through the bookstore this term. My books the books that I'm using are available online through Amazon. Most of them have an electronic version available through Amazon, and I don't see a reason to include an extra step there.
No,
And I know that most of my students are not, almost all of them are not on campus. They're nowhere near campus. Why would they go there?
the only reason I did it, Nikolai, is because I have a like Connect, which used to be like Kia, and
Right. I know that. Yeah.
that's part of it. And to make a package deal for them, it's cheaper.
Oh,
So-
I see. Okay. Yeah, for me, it was the other way around. It would be more expensive through the bookstore than if they just buy a PDF or.
I have to. Can I add to that?
Of course.
I did my textbook, as I said, it's my own, so it's digital. It's PDF format, so they can print it, okay, or they can view it online, so it's easy. But I know that Christina, are you there? I think Christina's there. She's got a textbook that she's using. Speaking for Christina now, but we talked about this, and we found that it was really well priced, and it's completely online. And I think there's a lot of options out there, but I do think we need to keep costs down. I think there is an obligation in general just to make sure that we're keeping things below a certain amount of money, especially now because a lot of students are unable to work. So I do think it's something really to keep in mind, just to make sure that we keep the cost down. It shouldn't be cost prohibitive.
No, that's right.
And I already made notes for a couple ideas where we could easily have a separate meeting, and we're going to go over those at the end of our session. But why don't we keep moving and then see what comes up? So number 3, ways of engaging students, and we can absolutely have a separate 3-hour session just sharing our ideas about engaging students. So I have a couple of points of my own, but if anyone else wants to chime in first, please go ahead. I know Anne was eager to share her experiences there.
Yes. Nikolai, can I share the screen with everyone?
I think you try sharing it, and then it'll ask me to allow you to share the screen. And then
it says you cannot while the other participant is sharing.
Okay,
so you have to actually, if you can allow me to go in.
As soon as it asks me, I'll allow you.
Yeah, I think you have to go into your settings at the bottom for share. And if you can allow me to share with the group. So go into share screen.
Yeah. I don't
Probably UN. It's probably UN. You have to go into your Zoom and click on something, because that happened to me once.
I think you need to ask, like, you have to start sharing, and then it'll ask me if that's okay. Because
when I go into share, it says that I can't. I think it's probably because of the way that you've set up the meeting.
So for me, it says that all participants can share. Who can share?
Okay, good.
All participants.
Right. Let me just
There we
tell
go.
me, is my screen up?
Yeah. So what did you do?
Perfect. Okay, great.
So what did you do? How did you share that?
Oh, sorry. So I just pushed on when you allowed participants to share.
Well, that was always on. I didn't touch that.
Said I did a 4-day course on how to teach remotely because UTM, I also teach for UTM, they've mandated that all of our courses have to be synchronous, and so has the Board of Ed. So we don't have a choice. However, there were some things that came up during the presentation that I thought I'd share with you. So how to engage students online is the virtual dilemma. Basically states that for effectiveness, there should be a mix of synchronous and asynchronous learning going on, and it should be about a 70-30 split. So it should not be all you time, it should not be all lecture time. The students have to be doing something with the material, usually at the end. So just to give you some ideas, and again, these are not my ideas, these are the ones that came up from the meeting. Profile to include a picture. You share an introductory video where you introduce yourself. Now, again, these are just ideas. These are not mandated, right? You could share your background, share your successes, your failures, what you hope for the course, and also that you encourage students to do the same. If you feel comfortable, put a welcome video and post it on Avenue. So again, that's what I'm intending to do. So I'm actually intending to do those two things. Make a welcome video where I introduce myself and I'll post it on Avenue. Record announcements. This really struck with me because, as I said before, I was doing totally asynchronous learning with my group last year, but I actually put in recordings. So if I was doing a presentation, it wasn't just on the PowerPoint, it was actually on, I would record it as well. And a lot of my students were writing back saying, oh, it was so nice to hear your voice. They really, because we had been separated all of a sudden, that was a comfort to them to hear my voice as I was going through and reading things out to them. Also, when I gave them feedback, I actually recorded it as well. Because sometimes when you write written feedback to a student, you can sound very angry. And I've had that experience myself. And so again, recording it so that they know that you're not upset with them, you're just giving them constructive feedback is a plus. And again, check in with individual students who don't seem to be participating, because again, this really does encourage them to participate. And the drop-in session for the office hours seemed to work well with people, where the first half would be an open session where anyone can come and you can just chat. And then the second half is reserved for people who have scheduled appointments with the professor. So that seemed to work well with people who tried it this summer. Again, organizing an active learning environment seemed to be key to a successful synchronous classroom. So again, going over learning goals at the beginning of each class, including a student engagement element on the syllabus, low stakes, but enough that students see value in it. So whether you put a percentage on it, or whether you simply say this will enhance your learning if you do participate, or if you simply make it an expectation. In my class, it's going to be an expectation that they participate. And this was an interesting one. Encourage students to check Avenue regularly. I was amazed how many students last year told me they never go on Avenue. They would write to me and say, I don't have this. It's posted on Avenue. Oh. So taking them on a tour of Avenue and showing them where you're putting things is really key to successful learning for them. I thought that everyone checked Avenue, but I guess I was living in a fool's paradise. And again, establish an active discussion board. So if you do discussions, I'm in. So don't just have the students post their ideas, but react to it. Oh, that's really interesting. Does anybody have anything to add to that? Or are others finding this as well? So again, be an active member of the discussion board if you're using that. Okay, and again, just ways to create an active classroom. So starting student engagement on day one and be consistent. So get the students to do something right away that gets them engaged. For example, pose a low-level stakes question like, is a hot dog a sandwich? Everyone will have an opinion on that. Stop every 10 minutes to check for understanding. You can either use the preset polls in Zoom or simply the participants. So if they go into participants and they just hit yes or no, and then again, let students unmute to ask questions if they have them. Use the whiteboard for student responses. This is a really cool feature of Zoom. So again, if I say the word shopping, what word comes to mind, and just build a word wall, for example, of ideas the students have. And the breakout rooms, this is something I'm going to use a lot. So again, that way you can set up partner activities And again, the breakout rooms in Zoom are really cool because you can put timing on them. So you can say you'll only have 3 minutes in your breakout room, and then it will kick them out and it will send them back to the classroom. So that way they really use that time in the breakout rooms effectively. And after break, if you have a break in your class, have the students check in to say that they're back. And have an exit ticket. So finish the class with an activity that addresses one of the learning goals. So say a pop quiz. That can be that asynchronous learning. So again, they're not finished until they complete that quiz. So again, it can be just a select the right answer based on what you've learned. And again, let students make some course decisions. So again, maybe 3-4 weeks in, you could send out a poll for them of what to keep, start, or stop. So this is what I'm doing. Should we keep it? Is there something I'm not doing? Should we start it? Or is there something I'm doing that you hate? Should I stop doing that? And that gives the students some agency in how the class is being run. Don't worry, I'll send all this along to Wendy and Nikolai so they can post it. Again, experiment with different videos. So embedded videos, listening exercises, music at the beginning of class is kind of cool. You can have students send in the music that they like in German, Italian, whatever, and you can play at the beginning of class. And so you start the class by saying this music comes to us courtesy of so-and-so. Use cartoons, and again, those cultural pop-up quizzes are a fun way to engage students without being threatening. And of course, Zoom has a ton of tutorials that you can take. They only last about 5 minutes. So if you want to learn how to, use the breakout rooms or whatever, you can go on these tutorials. There's also a 45-minute kind of in-depth tutorial specifically for educators on Zoom that you can follow, and it covers all of these topics. And I'm done. So I'm going to stop sharing.
That is fantastic, Anne. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No problem.
Thank you, Anne. That was very informative.
Thank you. And I'm just
Really
trying
nice.
to fix my.
Do you mind if I make I don't want to take over. I just want to make a couple comments. I thank you so much for that. It is very informative. And I know that I think sometimes the idea of asynchronous, people think that there can't really be the same level of engagement. I think one of the things that I took away from the Arts and Sci workshop the other day was that if you have 100 students in a class, and I think Nikolai was saying this before, it's you can't really gauge their participation, or you really can't keep track of what they're doing sort of at their desk, right? Because a lot of them are sometimes on their phones, unfortunately, things like that. I think if you set it up, you can do a lot of what Anne was saying you can do in a synchronous lecture. You can still program that in a recorded lecture. I think lecture material always needs to have audio anyway if you're going to record it. I mean, I don't think you'd ever want to put something up there that doesn't have any sort of associated audio. And of course, with the audio, you do have to have the closed captioning. I think it's really important to always consider with all of this, the SAS accommodations, because it, especially if you've got a lot of things going on in a particular lecture, you have things that are timed and what have you. What I find useful is that Avenue, and again, getting students to check in with Avenue means that you have to have tasks embedded in Avenue on a weekly basis. And if you don't have that, there's not the incentive for them to go in and do that. But if you can tie as much as you can into Avenue and make it meaningful and worthwhile for them, they will check Avenue. So for example, they can't access the lectures unless they go into Avenue, for example, that's one. Or your Zoom meetings, the invitation is in Avenue under announcements or however you wish to broadcast that, but it forces them to go into Avenue. And I think the expectation nowadays is that students do look to Avenue for their grades. And so most of their courses, if not all of their courses, use Avenue. So we definitely should all be on Avenue. I had a couple notes here about, you can still in an audio or video lecture, you can still ask questions and give pauses and ask them, for example, to fill in information on a task sheet or in a book. And they'll be more motivated if they know they'll be tested on this after. And you can even do a quiz on Avenue that's timed, that shows up right after they viewed something. Because I've been doing this with my students, and I would say that they complete the tasks, and that way you can check in, as Anne was saying, this is important too. If you find that students aren't engaging or aren't participating, it would be difficult to see everybody, especially if you've got, you know, 60 to 100 students in a class, but you can see who's done the work and who hasn't done the work, and you can also check on Avenue the timestamp on when they did the work. So I think it's just useful for tracking things a little bit. But yeah, I don't think that. I'm also curious too. I don't know how many students, Anne, did you have in the German course at UTM?
So again, this was actually the course at UTM that I'll be teaching has at the moment 35 students.
Okay, that's a difference.
That's exactly, it makes a big difference. And again, I don't know how, you know, as I said, this is what UTM has mandated. The other thing with UTM is they have a lower number than McMaster does for when you get a TA. So what they've done is they have set the number at 40 for a TA. So the idea is the TA would be monitoring the chat and would be monitoring student questions. At the same time, the teacher is lecturing. So you don't have to do those two things at the same time. They will be the ones who will be tracking that. That will be a tremendous help.
Yes,
Yeah,
and I can tell from experience when you teach a class and you're trying to deal with 20 students at the same time, and then somebody else asks a question on chat, and that totally throws you off because they're asking about something you said 15 minutes ago, and that is a real problem.
Right. I think that
for the chat room.
Yeah, I think that is why they suggested that every 5 to 10 minutes you stop and ask if there are any questions so that you can move on. Because again, I'll have, you know, I'll have this rather large class, relatively speaking, of 35, and I won't have a TA. So I'll have to do that. I'll have to stop every couple of minutes and say, okay, is everybody clear on what we're doing? Any questions? Then let's move on and keep it going that way.
Sorry, Anne, did you have the pop-up hand?
We have, yeah, there's a pop-up hand, but again, unless you, as Nikolai said, it's really hard to monitor that when you're actually trying to get through stuff. So it's much better if you stop every once in a while, have the students just go into participants at the bottom. And that way you can just say, is everybody okay? And they just say yes or no. If you're getting a lot of no's, then it's okay, it's time to stop and ask for questions. But if everybody says yeah, or just gives you the thumbs up, there's a thumbs up icon on it as well. If everybody's fine, and you know, there's also a reactions button at the bottom of your screen.
Probably, I'm sorry for interrupting, we should probably have a whole session on teaching with Zoom, because there are quite a few tricks that you need to know. And I can see that quite a few people are unmuted right now. And that's the first rule of using Zoom. You mute yourself.
Muted, I know.
And then when you want to speak, you hold the space key. Otherwise, we're going to get an echo. And I'm surprised that we didn't get here, but in your classroom, you will get it.
Right.
Right. So, and was that it, or do you have anything else to add?
No, that's it.
All right. So I just wanted to share very, very briefly, because we're already 40 minutes in and we're still on number 3. So when I was teaching my class, I didn't think it would be so obvious, but I did find that there were quite a few people who they're logged in, but they're not there. When you ask them a question, there is no answer. And you ask them again 15 minutes later, and there is no answer. And you ask them again at the end of the class, and there is no answer, but they're logged in, and so on. And just expect that there will be such people. Or sometimes when after recording the class, my students would watch the recording, and then they would message me and say, oh, I'm so sorry, it's so embarrassing. You asked me a question and I wasn't there. And then they give you a story about how they had to step out for 15 minutes because of, and then they give you a whole lot of personal details that you don't want to know, and so on. So I expect that is something that will regularly happen. Also, I just wanted to show you what it feels like to be a student, and I was going to
You're muted, Nikolai.
Oh, of course. And now I forgot to hold the space bar. So let me ask you a question. Who knows what Zoom breakout rooms look like? And please, to answer, go into the participant list and answer yes or no. So when you click on the participants list, then you'll have your options. Yes, no, go faster, go slower, and so on. So if a lot of people know, we have one go faster. Okay, we'll speed up. So far we have 6 no's and 5 yeses. So let me just quickly assign everybody into a breakout room. I'll close it in about 1 minute just so that you can see what it looks like. And there we go. You will have to leave the meeting and manually enter a breakout room where you will be assigned to. So I'm opening the rooms. Hello.
Yes.
So now you know what it feels like when the prof enters the room and wants to see whether the students are actually discussing what they were told or not. So it worked out better than I thought. It takes a few seconds to connect and then to disconnect, and then for these students to actually enter the classroom again, because you're not automatically sent back to the classroom. You have to enter it again. But that's what it feels like. So I will join somebody
Thank you.
else.
Yeah, I like it.
So we're still waiting on probably a dozen people getting back into our meeting. So I personally found that when I was using the breakout rooms, it slowed down the pace too much, but it's a crucial tool that we have. So it took a few seconds for people to actually enter the rooms and then to go back and connect to the main class, to join the main classroom, but still. All right, so I think everybody is back in, and we have, what is it, a raised hand, Christina.
Sorry, I hope you don't mind if I interject.
Of course, no, that's what it's there for.
I just wanted to say quickly that for breakout rooms, it's very easy for us to be like, all right, they're on their own now. And sometimes I would like do some administrative work while they were in their rooms, but it's really important for us to check in with them and to pop our heads in, because sometimes, depending on the size of the group, you might have 2 students who are just not saying anything, or 1 student who's not even there. And so it's good to check in and be like, just see if they're saying anything and then pop out. And if you hear silence, say, hey, is everything okay? Do you have any questions? And you can do that if you, depending on the length of the activity, you can pop into different groups.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you for that comment. So also in terms of student ways of engaging students, personally, I am using Top Hat, which is a whole different topic, which I don't want to go into, but I like it for several reasons. And let me just spend 1 minute and show you what it looks like. So here you see my screen, and the main reason why I like it is because I can write on the screen. And the second reason, equally important, is that I can present in full screen mode, and I can still see other things on my screen. So if I use Keynote, then I only see my presentation. I don't see anything else. If I use Top Hat, this is a window on my computer, and I still see the list of participants, your videos, and the chat room, and so on. And I do like that you can write on the screen and it's a lot better than the built-in feature that Zoom has. Zoom does have this feature too. You can annotate screen, but it's not as neat as the Top Hat feature. Christina, do you still have a comment, or is your hand still up? Just there we go. I see. So you need to lower the hand. There we go. So, and also what I like about Top Hat is that I can ask questions, and then students will be answering. So this is what a normal question looks like. And let me just show you, and we'll move to the next point right away. So we're here, they're presenting my slide, I'm presenting my slides, blah, blah, blah. And I can write on the screen, mark stuff, and I have several colors and whatnot, but that's all minor. But then I can ask them a question like this. So you bump into somebody on the street, what do you say? And then I start the question, and then they write the answers, and then all the answers are recorded, and we can discuss them in class, and I can point out what is wrong and so on. And the questions are almost the same as on Avenue, but there are a couple of cool things, like students can answer with a drawing, or they can answer with a picture. And I was talking to Narcisse about how to deal with a course where students don't have, where they would need to type in using different characters, right? And one of the solutions that we thought would be viable is that they would actually do it by hand, but then submit a picture of what they just wrote. They would answer with a picture that they would take with their smartphone and so on. But I think using Top Hat would be a good topic for a whole new separate session for those interested. So we're not going to spend more time on it, but just to let you know, I used it several times in several courses, and I went from hating them big time for their marketing strategy to being a big fan. So that's as much as I will say about Top Hat. Number 4. Blackboard to spontaneously write on. That is something that we all use in classrooms. That is a very valuable tool. And I will just start answering, but then other people please chime in. I want to hear your ideas as well. Zoom has a built-in whiteboard. I'm going to share that with you. Here you see my whiteboard, and I can write things there. I can type in text. I used it. It's a little awkward. So for example, if I want to edit this text now that I wrote, it'll take me a few clicks to actually click in the right spot. And it's okay. It can be used, but it's not as nice as I would like it to be. But that's one solution. And if I am missing something, please correct me and teach me how to use this tool properly, because I would like to use it. But right now, the way they set it up, it's not really functional. Do we have any comments, any ideas, suggestions on that? People who are more proficient with this than I am?
Just a general question. Which button do you push for that function?
You click on New Share. When you share a screen, you click on New Share.
Okay.
And then you select whiteboard as your option.
Oh, the whiteboard is there. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what I also found out is that I ended up using the chat room a lot. So for example, if we are talking about a word and the students don't know what it means, then I would write it in the chat. And somebody needs to mute themselves. We can hear.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. That happens all the time. So it would look like this. Entschuldigung, excuse me. Right, so I ended up using that a lot more than I thought. But again, I am a very messy typer. When I type, I do make mistakes, and then I have to retype the same word 3 times and so on. That is something that I know that I'm not good at myself. But using the chat room for those for translating words actually makes sense. It was quite useful. Does anybody else have any ideas, suggestions, how we can deal with this? So I ended up writing things in the Top Hat slides using their screen annotation feature, sometimes switching to the Zoom Blackboard, but I probably have to learn how to use it properly because it's not very intuitive.
I've used the whiteboard on teaching, and I agree with you. It's not ideal, but I don't know. It has a feature where you can save whatever you write, so I like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a bit annoying.
It is. It is. Okay, moving to number 5, classroom management and chat rooms. So classroom management is, well, pretty much non-existent. You don't know what they're doing unless someone has their mic on and you can see that they're actually having a party. And that happened several times to me. Or when I unmuted a few students and it turned out that they're listening to music or doing something else. Which is embarrassing for them, but there's not much you can do. So I just came to terms with this idea that they have a right to pay for my course and not to participate, and I cannot force them to do that because I don't know what they're doing. And it's my personal pet peeve. I really don't like talking to the screen. So in my course, I ask them that if they talk, they have to turn on their video. I want to see who I'm talking to. My rationale is that if you see who I am, I have a right to see who you are. That, of course, will discourage a lot of people from actually saying anything in the target language. But by default, I ask my students to keep their video on, and about a dozen, maybe a little bit more than a dozen, do so. And they're the people who I end up knowing and who participate quite a lot. And I also, as I already mentioned, I came to terms with the idea that a few of them will log in, will mute themselves, will turn off the video, and will go for a walk. And there is nothing I can do to stop that.
All right, I have a question. I don't know, because I took so many webinars and whatever that I'm a little bit confused, but I thought we couldn't ask them to see them. I thought that we had to allow them to do whatever they wanted, whether they wanted to be left just screen, or if they wanted, they could put their pictures on.
You're talking about screen sharing. They can't share screen.
No. Like, you know how you see me?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I thought that we couldn't mandate that we see them. Am I right? Am I wrong? I don't know. I've watched so many things. What do you guys?
They have control over their webcam. They can turn it on and off.
No, but do we have the right to make them turn it on?
You're talking about legal issues now.
No, but okay, so
I don't know. I did it, and I will keep doing it because I don't like talking to my screen. And I am a firm believer that if they see me, I have a right to see who I'm talking to as well.
Okay, but see, this is where I'm confused because, like I said, I've been taking webinars, and from the McPherson, whatever, and other one, and I'm pretty sure I heard somewhere, and I want somebody to clarify this if they could, that we cannot mandate that. That's something that we cannot mandate. If somebody
I would fight against that tooth and nail until the last day of my life. That is unfair. It should not be the case.
I wonder if Elliot knows anything about that. I think Elliot is with us, if he knows.
Thanks. Yeah, I can maybe speak to that a little bit. So I have also heard much of the suggestion, I think a fairly strongly worded suggestion, that you give students the option to leave their videos off for a variety of reasons that I'm happy to explain, but won't right now unless you'd like me to. I don't think there are like hard and fast rules about it, though. I think there are sort of best practices or suggested practices. So it's up to you. My understanding is that it's fundamentally up to you, but it's helpful to extend some grace to students sometimes if they, for whatever reason, feel like they can't or don't want to have their video on. So, they may be in spaces where they don't want people to see their background. If that's a concern for them, you could chat with them about putting on some of those, fake backgrounds behind you with like either blurred images or something like that, so that people won't be looking into their living rooms or their bedrooms or spaces that they don't want you to see. There may be other reasons that they don't want to turn their video on. I would suggest if your position is that they should have them on, which I think is fair, because I mean, you don't want to be speaking to just a bunch of like a blank screen, right? I think there's something really significant to be said for having some kind of engagement, as limited as it might be at this point in time. There is something to be said, I think, for having videos on. If you suggest that to your students or really like require it of your students, I think you can also say, if you have a significant issue with that, please approach me separately and we can talk about it. And there might be a workaround or some sort of other conclusion that you that you can reach with them. So it is a tough balance between student privacy and the goal, I think, of building a sense of classroom community, which is hard enough to develop now, and certainly something I think you want to, and that is important in language teaching, right? I'm not sure if that helps clarify anything.
Well, actually, you know what, if I may interrupt, I made it sound like I require them to have the video on. No, I ask them to have it on if they are able to. And what surprised me is that most of them didn't have an issue with it.
Yeah.
So it's not as bad as I described it. But Wendy and I were participating in that session. Remember, May at Mac, and we had several students show up. There were names in the participant list. They were unmuted, and they just asked something in the chat room. And that was a very negative experience for me. So I don't want to turn my language class into that. But in my class, I asked them to turn their video on if they could, and a lot of them didn't have a problem with it.
I have to be honest, I didn't find it to be such a, just for me, I didn't find it to be a negative experience. Even when I did the the weekly office hours of my own class, I was just looking at Ariel Kim's message about major bandwidth issue. I didn't request my students to show their faces and said, look, you can unmute yourself to make a comment or participate in some way. It was really just review and discussion. So I just, whatever you're comfortable with is fine, because I just don't know everybody's home situations. And, just from my own perspective right now, my children are at the park with my husband, but I have that privilege of having someone who can take my kids to the park right now. And sometimes there's a lot of noise in the background, and Eugenia understands this completely well because she's got 3 little ones at home. So it's hard. We don't really know who the students are and what their situations are. So I do oral testing in my course, but it's set up as a test, and it's very infrequent. So there'll be 2 points in the course where the student has to set up that hour, and in that moment, I will ask to see the students. I will ask that they don't have to show their. Well, actually, we'll have to see their faces because it's a test. I want them to show their student card, and I want to make sure it's that person. Because what happens too sometimes in language courses, if somebody knows somebody else and I'm not familiar with the person's voice, they can have someone else participate for them. But in those moments, I'm going to have them show their student card and their face, and I'm going to hear the voice, and I'm going to ask them questions, ask them to read something, and then I will be evaluating on that basis. But these are 2 separate points in the course. We'll be alone, so it's one-on-one, and I will record it for just in case they say, well, I thought I did better than I thought I did, and I can go back and say, actually, here, let's have a listen and what have you. So I know it would be ideal to be able to see everybody, because we really do want to have that engagement, that face-to-face engagement, but I think it is what it is, and it's just not going to be that. And I think most of us are dealing with really like big enrollments. I don't know, it's hard. It's really hard.
One solution that could potentially be used there is that everybody turns off their video to save bandwidth and so on. And just for the record, I just upgraded my internet to 1 gigabit per second, so it's 1,000 megabits, right? It should be super fast. And during this meeting, I was told twice that my internet connection is unstable, and it doesn't get faster than 1 gigabit, right? And still, the meeting froze up a couple of times for me. So I totally forgot where I was going. Oh yes, when all of the students have their video off, but then when you are engaging a couple of them and they're, let's say, playing a dialogue, you ask those 2 to turn their video on, then you can see only 2 of them. Well, and of course the professor. By the way, I always keep my own video on even when I record lectures through Zoom, because then they don't just see my lecture slides, they see my face, and I think that changes the dynamic quite a bit, so that's important. And then we also got a comment about chat rooms that I think it was Sonomi, right, who mentioned that students were
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. 2 groups of students discriminated each other. I was not able to see their chat, so you have to be really careful to setting for the chat.
And I'm not sure if I can disable chat between participants. I think I saw that option somewhere.
They can, but you can do not chat each other.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be a good option.
Wendy told me that we can set up like everyone can see the chat, what they chatting.
Because in my own course, when the students thought one of the students thought that they were messaging another student, and they sent it to the whole class, and the text of the message read something like, "This is so boring, I'm going to watch YouTube." And that was in the middle of my own class, and of course that student saw that, and then they had to apologize and so on. So that will happen to you as well, most likely. And yeah, so turning off that chat between students is an option. I don't know if I will quite do it, but yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Do we have anything else on classroom management and chat rooms and so on? Then why don't we go to the next point, which is tracking attendance, dealing with missed classes and students overseas. So the first of these, tracking attendance. I will just start talking, and then if you have comments, suggestions, please interrupt me. So I was using Top Hat, and in Top Hat there is a button called Track Attendance, where everybody has a thing pop up on their screen. They have to enter a code and so on. So I thought that was bulletproof because they have to be there. They have to click the button. Well, that was not. They tricked me out. They outsmarted me. One of the students at the end of the course kind of confessed that that person was not in the Zoom meetings, but that person would get a text message from a friend in class. So that student would log in during the time when I was taking attendance. So that particular person got perfect attendance, but didn't attend many classes. So that's possible. That's an option too. Overall, I'm okay with the way Top Hat was tracking attendance. It's pretty convenient and so on. Honestly, I don't know about tracking attendance in Avenue. I haven't used that feature. If there is such a feature, I know you can do it manually, but can you have everybody kind of check in? And I'm trying to talk, and something pops up in the chat, so just give me a second. I'm gonna take a look. So Wendy, you have replaced attendance with timed frequent quizzes.
Yes, I personally found it very difficult to track attendance. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I sort of accepted this as a different animal. And I know that traditionally we take attendance in language courses, but I figure if they're doing something, they're participating, and it doesn't happen to be in the real time that I'm teaching something, it doesn't matter as long as there's engagement, as long as they're logged in and doing that in that moment. So again, I'm calling this a quiz because Avenue likes to call a lot of things quizzes, but you can call it whatever you want. You can even call it attendance. You can call it participation mark and say, okay, you've watched such and such a video. Now you have to, answer the following questions that came up in the video, right? And they go in and they do that, and that's their participation. So
and those quizzes are not real time. They are.
Well, you can do whatever you want. If you want to have them at a specific time, just say, I really want the students to see this at a specific time, and then I even did this in my fourth year linguistics seminar class. What I would do is I would ask questions in class, and I would already, before class, I would set up a quiz in Avenue, and it would start during class. So let's say that an hour into our 2-hour class, the quiz would start. I said, okay, everybody open up, your laptops or get on your devices. There's a quiz there. Go to pages such and such in the textbook. We just talked about this reading. Here are the following questions. And they had to do it in class. So you can do the same type of thing with Avenue. And you don't want to have them logging onto too many things at the same time, which is why I thought it'd be nice if they could watch something or participate in something. If it's, if you want to do a live Zoom class, and then right after say, look, for the last 30 minutes of class, there's a quiz online. We're going to log off of Zoom now. Go on to Avenue and open up the quiz. You've got 20 minutes.
And what I tried doing that, and what happened is that quite a few of them would message me later explaining why they couldn't access the quiz or participate at that particular time. And after, I had to answer 10 emails, and I gave up on that.
Okay, I didn't have the, or you just, sometimes you have to put your foot down and say, I'm sorry, but, you know, or say, look, you have one freebie. You can miss one. Maybe you have 15 of them throughout the course. You can miss one. The other ones you have to MSAF. And then I say, okay, if you've missed that, then that portion of your mark gets added on to your final exam. They don't like that. I say, oh, my final exam is going to be worth more, or my oral test is
And
going to be worth more.
my issue with that would be that having that many students, you would have to know exactly how many percent to reallocate for different students, and the numbers will be different. So just keeping track of that will be a part-time job on its own.
Well, yeah, I didn't have a problem with it. In the linguistics class, I had 50 students. Okay, so I didn't really find, there were a few students that just didn't show, but I would see that they weren't there. That's a different story because this was face to face. Online, if you give them opportunities to do it over a period of time, say they have an hour window, then it's really up to them. They have to MSAF it then. Now they want to use their MSAF for something that's worth 2%, then that's their own business, right?
Yep. Well, dealing with missed classes kind of connected to tracking attendance. Here, what I meant by that is whether we give the students access to class videos, and I always uploaded my class slides and the recordings as I showed you on YouTube. They're unlisted. I didn't run into any problems with that. I forgot who it was that messaged us and reported very negative experience with uploading videos to Mac Video, that it was slow, and that person ended up using YouTube. I used YouTube. It was fast. There is no limit on how long your videos can be. Everybody could access them. So that is what I did. And if we don't have any more suggestions, and I know it's 11:08, so students overseas, I had one student who was in China during my classes, and I could see it when I went to YouTube statistics that one person watched my class videos from China, and I think there was something like that in Top Hat as well. It worked out okay. That person was able to participate in live classes, and I didn't have many problems with it. Narcisse, you have your hand up.
Sorry, Nikolai, I just have a quick question. So when we upload these videos of our classes, that doesn't need subtitle, right? Because I know that there is a rule that everything, all the videos.
Well, that is going to be our next topic, captioning, because it's a big problem. And just let me check. Does anybody else have anything to add for students who are overseas? I don't know how to deal with that issue. That one person that I had didn't happen to have any problems, but I anticipate that internet connection will be unstable and other things will happen. I don't know. I guess we'll have to discover that. And if we don't have anything else on, yes, Christina.
Yeah, the thing that I've been that's been recommended to me is having testing be available for, let's say, 12 hours or 24 hours for students who are in a different time zone, because if it's just during the synchronous class time or whatever the class time, let's say the 2-hour window that students are given, it can be a really big problem if a student has to write the test at, like, let's say 3 in the morning.
And I can totally hear you, but on the flip side, it will be more than possible that students will pay somebody to do the tests for them. If you make a quiz open or test for 12 hours, I personally know of a case where one student did dozens and dozens of quizzes for others, and that student was taking money for it. I will not name the course, but yeah, that was the case. So after that, I started really limiting the time. What I think we can do is that if we know that a specific student is in a different part of the world, we can assign the same quiz to that student to be available during a different time that would fit that student's time. And I don't think that will be much of a hassle. Angela.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to comment about the students overseas. It's my understanding that some students may have difficulty accessing YouTube from China due to some firewall, the firewall, but that Mac Video does not have the same restrictions. So if you do find that students can't access your material, you might need to switch to a different host like Mac Video.
Yes, and that is a very valid comment. I'm glad I didn't run into that problem, but yeah.
You could also, if that's a problem for a student, you could just send that student the file, the movie file of the lecture, right?
Yeah, we would have to find an alternative host for those videos. Mac Video honestly, I haven't tried Mac Video because I heard several people report how slow it is and so on, but we are definitely running out of time. So captioning is a major problem. We need to have it, but usually we speak with an accent when we speak English, at least in my case, and we switch between English and the target language all the time. So I have no idea. I don't know if there is a captioning software that would actually be able to pick up on that and provide captions that would be legible and would make sense, considering that we're switching all the time. I don't have an answer to that.
You an option where you can go in and you can captioning very easily. So you could just go in and listen to it or read it again, and you can just correct anything that's not.
I'm sorry, Wendy. At least on my computer, you were
but it picks up so many languages.
Frozen in the beginning. Would you mind saying that again?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I know that on YouTube, I haven't used it at length yet, so I'm still very new with it, but YouTube has really easy captioning software embedded within it, so you can go in and like look at the captioning at each point of the video, so and you can change it and you can alter it, and it recognizes so many languages because it's used in so many parts of the world.
With my accent, I have problems communicating with Google Home. Forget about YouTube.
I don't even perceive you having a very strong accent at all. But I think with captioning with YouTube, you should just go in, and if it's just one little thing here and there,
I heard that it's very going over YouTube captions is very time consuming. I forgot who mentioned that, but I heard that. And Hector has a hand up. Hector?
Yeah, I was just about to, commenting. I was just about to comment that the student in China situation, but is it the right time to fit in? Since we're
why don't we finish our talk about captioning, and then we'll go back to YouTube. Just so that we stay on topic. Trying out YouTube captions, of course, is a viable option. We should try it. But I know that I code switch all the time. It's half English, half German when I do German, and it's. I think it will be a very tough one.
Narcisse had a question about captioning, though. She wanted to know if we recorded and correct me if I'm wrong, Narcisse, you want to know if we recorded a lecture, let's say on Zoom, for example, and then we uploaded that, if we needed to provide captioning for it. My understanding is that we do. Anything that's uploaded has to have captioning available. That's my understanding.
That was exactly my question. And if that is necessary, that's going to make it very difficult for me.
May I make a suggestion for that, just from other conversations that we had, and I think Ivona Kucherova and I were talking about this. You could provide a transcript if you want. So if, let's say that I know it's time consuming to do that, because most of the time I don't write a transcript when I give lectures. But if you have some notes, I think even if it's not exactly what you said, but it's close enough, right? I think as long as you have something like that. Christina said that's what she's done for oral exercises, which, I think that's, just try to get as close as you can.
For lectures, and when I teach linguistics, I think that would work. But when you teach a language, you constantly deviate from the script. There's play on words all the time. You talk about suffixes and prefixes and roots and endings and charts. I have trouble seeing how that would work in a language course. For a lecture-based course, absolutely. So I would argue that my lecture classes, they're not lectures. They are, I don't know, seminars or anything else but a lecture.
I agree with you, Nikolai. I think it's the same when I teach Farsi, and it's going to make it very, very difficult for me if I want to go with captioning captioning or any subtitles for any lecture. And I thought that on teaching my course on Zoom is better than just posting videos for that reason. So now if I want to go for that, it's like it's going to add a lot to what I need to do for the course.
I agree, Narcisse. You might just be better off doing the synchronous, and that way you don't have the obligation of putting in the, but if you have a request from SAS, you may or may not. Okay, so I'm sort of anticipating something that may not even happen. But
we could work out a deal when the SAS would provide a person who would actually go and correct the captions on YouTube and so on. We're not.
I don't. Good luck.
Right, but you know, as you know, we lost our TAs for language courses too, so we don't have the manpower to do that.
No, we don't.
Ourselves. So I don't know what to do with it, and this topic is clearly connected with the number 10, SAS accommodations. So Hector, why don't we go back to your comment about YouTube videos in China, and then we'll keep going to number 8.
Before we jump back to that issue, I will just have a little question that do we have people teaching language courses with transcriptions like IPAs? Like that was my thought. Like I thought about using that, but did we actually do that? No?
I don't think we're talking about IPA. It was.
Oh, but we were talking about transcription, right?
Right, not phonetic transcription.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, captioning, I think.
Yes, so something like lecture notes or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And before I forget, Christina has a wonderful comment there in the chat box about recruiting a note taker in each class.
Oh, okay.
That
SAS will do that. SAS.
That would solve the problem of.
Yeah,
not quite captioning, but
that. Every year I have some SAS coming to me and saying, can you please get somebody to take notes in your class? No, I can never get anyone to do it for me. I've asked till I'm blue in the face. Nobody wants to do it. They say,
it's true.
Do I get paid for it? No, it's a volunteer, whatever, look good on your transcript that you know that you did this. No, they don't want to do it. I've had a problem every year. No, I have yet to have one person say yes.
You know, I can relate to what Jenny is saying. That is my experience in some terms, but several times I did find the person who eagerly took notes. That was in a lecture-based course. And but last year, for example, it was exactly like you're saying, Jenny. I asked it 7 times. I asked them several times, and SAS bombarded me with requests to urgently find a note taker, and nobody would do it. All right, Hector.
Yeah. So it is a known fact that YouTube is banned in China for reasons that I would like to introduce somewhere else if you're curious. But I can also say that as yet another Chinese student myself, it is very common for us to have personal VPN. So that might not be like that much worried.
Okay, so there are ways to go around.
It's very popular there, yeah. And at the same time, though, if you are thinking about sending your recorded video to that specific student, you can also upload that onto a Chinese video website. So if you have issues like that, if you want to do that, you can contact me. I can get you like hooked up to a
Thanks so much, Hector.
That would be very helpful. Awesome, thank you. No problem. Right, and I know that I'm rushing through. Oh, there's another comment there. So Angela, instead of all of us reading at the same time, would you mind just saying a few words about what you wrote there?
Yeah, so I hear your concerns about working in 2 different languages and how are you going to caption that or capture that. So I'm not sure if you know this, but in PowerPoint, you can turn on a feature called live captioning, I believe it's called.
I had no idea.
That will, that will caption for you, and you can even do that captioning through a translation in a different language. So I wonder if you could like make the settings in the live captioning through PowerPoint in the language that you're teaching, and then rely on the automatic transcripting of whatever service you're using, YouTube,
Yeah, I would
Mac
clearly
Video, or
take,
whatever for the English portion. So if you're recording that synchronous session, and you have the PowerPoint live captioning running, and you have the closed captioning applied after the fact, then at least you have kind of captioning of both languages. Again, I haven't really thought through that whole process yet, but I'm just wondering if you can use those two.
That's a tool that I was unaware of. So yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And I'm using Keynote, and at least one thing, I'm a Mac person, but at least one thing where PowerPoint beats Keynote is PowerPoint does allow you to enter presentation mode in a window on your screen. In Keynote, if you start presenting, you're full screen. That's it. Okay. I'm looking at something else here. All right, there we go. Testing. So we only have a few minutes left. So Hector, do you still have a comment, or did you just leave the hand up there?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So testing. I will show you what I did, and I will show you my screen. I'm using Top Hat, and Top Hat has a partnership with a company called Proctorio. It's a Chrome extension that students install. And Top Hat is not the only company who deals with Proctorio. McMaster was seriously considering adopting Proctorio for, I think, Avenue, but they dropped them as a candidate. So I'll show you what it looks like. So you click on creating your Top Hat test, and that is how I solved that problem. And when you create the test, it asks you if it is, you want it to be monitored, and then Top Hat monitoring, Proctorio. I'm even unfamiliar with these options. So anyway, when I was using it over the summer, this changed, and they were just using Proctorio. This is a software that records the screen of that student and records their webcam. And the second the student's eyes point outside of the screen, there's a red flag, and so on. And Proctorio disables printing, opening, closing tabs, and so on and so forth. And also, this software scans their ID card, their Mac ID, and they have to go through this authentication process every time. So I can be reasonably sure that that the amount of cheating that was going on during my quizzes was not as high as I expected. So that solved my problem. And I know that McMaster was considering Proctorio as one of the candidates of similar software. They dropped it. I don't know who McMaster went with. I assume they're trying to build those software into Avenue, but there's no word on it yet. So I don't know how to give my final exams. So far in my course outlines, I included that my final exams will all be in Top Hat, because I know that it works and I know how it works. Whereas I have no idea what will happen with Avenue, if it will be built in or not. That is my solution to that. Do we have any comments or anything else?
I have a question, Nikolai.
Yeah.
This Top Hat that you're speaking of.
Yes.
Do you have to buy it? Do you download it?
For professors, it is free. Students do have to buy a $30 subscription. And for most of my courses, I did not require them purchasing a textbook. So I think $30 per term is reasonable. And of course, there will be several people who will complain that it's expensive and so on. And for those students, Top Hat usually for one course gives a couple of free licenses for struggling students. And I always gave them out, and no, it seems to work out. But students normally complain that, $30 is a big hit on their budget, and they avoid mentioning the fact that their headphones cost several hundred, and that's not a problem. So do we have anything else on testing? Of course, this is a major topic, and we could totally have a separate session on testing. So using creative assignments where it's not possible for them to teach, where they have to know the material to answer the questions correctly, or it could be a project or things like that. My personal grief with online teaching is that it's even easier now for the students to arrange a native speaker or somebody with a higher proficiency to write all the written assignments for them. And I don't know how to deal with it. And I was just noting whose assignment seems exceptionally good, and then I pretty much confront all the students as a group and I say, hey, listen, if I mark your assignment and I see that you're using advanced grammatical constructions that I haven't explained to you in this class yet, and you're using them, that is suspicious to me. Please don't do it, because then I will invite you into my office or we'll have a one-on-one chat, and I seriously don't want to do that. That has effect on some of the students, but some do provide submit final exams in perfect mistake-free native-like German in my first year.
I had some problems with that this summer. I had a few problems with that. I don't have too many, but nowadays it's even easier for the students because they can have a friend that they chat with online back in Germany, and they say, hey, look at this, I've got to do this project, right?
Yeah,
I had some
could
of
be
that
a roommate, their cousin in Italy, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody
Yeah.
over Skype.
Yeah.
You know.
It's hard to mitigate that. I think that just really, it's almost like you have to be very strategical about the way you test. And I mean, the first year course, I can't give them big writing assignments, because if I give them too many, if it's too open-ended, they can just cut and paste whatever. But if I give them certain restrictions, I was giving them many sentences. Like once you get up into the second year, third year courses, you can't do that. You want them to write something, right? Substantial.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But in the first year course, I would say you have to use these specific words, and I would throw in, relative pronouns, and you have to show how to use them. So they couldn't just take a sentence in English and then put it into Google Translate. So they had to do that, and that helped, right? But if they have a proficient relative, that person can can help.
Even simpler than that, Google Translate. I was getting emails from my students who I know didn't have any previous knowledge of German, emails in perfect German. And I was, at first I wrote how impressed I was and what a great job they were doing, until I realized that I'm communicating with Google Translate.
Yes, I know.
They type the email in English, translate it, and send me the German version. So in terms of testing and the written assignments, I thought of making them live during class time with that proctoring software. We'll just ignore that they look elsewhere outside the screen. I don't have a solution for that. That testing in Tomhead did work for my quizzes. The grades there were as I would expect them in a regular quiz during the class time.
Can I make another comment just about the testing? Because this is something I've really been struggling with over the last couple of years, because the course has been blended, or was blended for 2 years before it went. Mm-hmm. It still is blended because we still have that contact hour, right? But I found that I really had to change my thinking about what the goals of the course were going to be, especially if I had over 100 students, and it wasn't going to be a conversation course. It just couldn't, right? So I really focused a lot more on grammatical analysis and on reading. And so I think there's one particular assignment I had, was a matching activity in Avenue, and they had read this lengthy passage that was about a movie that they had seen, and they knew all the characters in the movie and all of that. And so what I did is I paraphrased each paragraph, and then I scrambled them. And these were timed tests. So they really had to know what they were reading to match them up. And it was an all or nothing activity. And so it was really reading intensive. And even if they were to, they could have cut and pasted it. It wouldn't really benefit them to do that, but it would waste so much time for them to do that. Right? Or to ask them about the meaning of a particular word in a passage. So it just, it requires a lot.
And I love these discussions of alternative testing and creative assignments. We could totally do that, and we should have
we should.
A session just to exchange these ideas, because during this session, I learned so much from a whole bunch of people. And it's 11:31, we're 1 minute late. So why don't we just very quickly go over special characters. And I will present an easy case because German just has 4 special characters that we don't have in English. And they're super easy to type on any English keyboard. You just have to Google it and see what it what it looks like, how it works on your operating system. And you wouldn't believe it, how many people wouldn't even do that. Some would, but some people, even at the end of the class, they wanted me to include those special characters on the page so that they would copy and paste them. And to me, that is a slap on the face. You've been learning German for so many hours, and I told you in the course outline that you have to find out how to type those 4 special characters, and you still haven't done it. But don't be surprised, there will be such people in your classes. And that is a super easy case. We have Mandarin, we have Farsi, and we have Russian that use different alphabets.
We have Korean as well.
We have
right?
Korean,
We have Japanese.
Right? Korean, Japanese, right. I don't know. I have nothing to tell you.
What do you do? Could we ask the instructors who teach those courses with special characters? I think I mean anyone can jump in.
My plan is to use a website that you type, basically they call it Finglish, and then it gives you the Farsi word. So
it's kind of a transliteration service.
Yes, yes.
That would work except for the testing. So if I were to do that in my course while using the top hat testing, the system would, during the test, doesn't allow them to switch to other tabs or windows.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I should come up with a plan for that.
Yeah. Can we not use Word? They have symbols. Can we not use that?
No.
No? Oh.
Yeah, I have no solution to this problem. I have no idea.
What I did when you know, in March and April, I just since we had no time, I just told them, it's up to you. You may type in Russian if you want to, or you may just write down the exercises, take a picture and upload it to Avenue. But again, I didn't have any time to figure out anything else. So this year I actually found the tutorial, the online tutorial for typing, and it's for several languages, including Russian. So what I will do, and of course it will not be required, a required thing, but I will encourage them to practice it and just try practicing the Russian typing. What I've heard from other Russian instructors is that it's a bit easier on when they are using their phones, because it's more
right.
It's more evident where the letters are.
They could use their phone. Russian, there we go, with the virtual keyboard. I'm sorry, that's just a light bulb just went on in my head. Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a great idea. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, a virtual keyboard.
Yeah, just switch between keyboards with one click there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Katya, you're awesome. All right.
Sorry, can I just jump in and say something? I'm the interloper from the classics department, so I don't know most of you, but I teach ancient Greek. And so the characters are a problem for us as well. I think in many ways, cheating on the sort of scale that you guys are describing is also less of a problem for us because there are no native speakers. So it's harder to find someone who will do your test or your work for you. But Mac users, and I'm an exclusively Mac user, so I don't know anything about PCs, but the keyboard input source has lots of language options. Like, it has ancient Greek. So if students are on Macs, they can sort of play around with that.
They would just need to know which key corresponds to which symbol, right?
Yeah, you can open a viewer though, where you can see the keyboard and you can sort of, it shows you what it is. But if you're on a Mac and you go to just the input source, you can add as many different languages as you want, and then you can switch between them. So I was going to show students that. I don't know if many of them know about that. We have websites as well where you can type, similar to what you're describing at Farsi, you can type on just your keyboard and it shows up in Greek and you can cut and paste. But I too is going to allow for students to take pictures of things and to submit them when they were writing in Greek. Because
And
part of it is, I don't know if this is an issue for you, but I actually want them to write. I don't normally accept typed assignments in an in-person setting. I want to see that they're learning how to write in Greek. So I kind of like the idea of having them write on paper and take a picture of it and send it to me somehow. So.
yeah, how would you mark it then? Then marking it is a different thing.
Well, it'd be marking it, yeah, not on the page. Or I guess it depends on how they send it to me. If they send it, I don't know. I haven't thought
Yeah.
that far ahead yet.
So page markup through preview would work, but it would be
Yeah.
a lot more difficult than through a PDF. Well, we'll do anything for their learning, right?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be
I can
clunkier for
see
sure, but
that.
everything this year is going to be
Mm.
clunkier. And I don't have as many written assignments as I normally would. So it's more the testing that's an issue. But yeah, I mean, Mac users should look into the keyboard source because there's all sorts of stuff. And I'd be surprised if that doesn't exist elsewhere as well.
Oh, of course it exists. They just need, you know, to invest 10 minutes and figure out how it works.
And if that happens on the first day of class, right? The sort of, someone said earlier to take them on a tour of Avenue. I think we're going to have to take them on a tour of just about everything as much as we can. And I think one of the things that, you know, we make the mistake of assuming that students who are younger than us know so much more about technology and know all of this stuff. But I think that, I mean, I'm planning on spending most of my first class, the synchronous class, walking them through different features. I'm using Teams, so walking them through the features of that, walking them through how to change their keyboard if they're on a Mac, walking them through Avenue, all of that sort of stuff.
And I think that is one area where it would make sense for us to just record a 1 hour or half an hour video of our screen explaining all that, and then reuse that in all the subsequent years when we teach the same course, because that could be very generic, not course specific.
Yeah, but I'd really like to not do this online again.
Yeah. By the way, and this is totally off topic, we don't have any news about what will happen in the winter term, do we? I think everything is scheduled for campus.
Nikolai, we do have news, and it'll be everything's online in term 2.
Are you serious?
I just read that yesterday. Yeah, everything is supposed to be online during term 2. That decision's been made.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you, John, for sharing it. Okay, so we have one more item, and before we go to number 10, just let me ask everybody. My feeling is that we learned a lot, and we identified a number of topics where we could have where we could expand on and learn from each other for subsequent meetings. What do you think if we have these meetings in the future, let's say next Friday before we start teaching, same place, same time? We'll just identify a topic that, or a couple of topics that we could talk about in more detail. I would be more than happy to start the meeting again and to proctor it. What do you guys think? Can you kind of give me yes or no? Would you be interested? If you have other things to do, that's fine. Please go to the participant list and then click yes or no.
Yes.
No offense taken. If you have better things to do, that's fine. But I learned so much today. Okay, so then during the week, we'll identify some topics. We'll vote on them. I guess I'll do a doodle poll. And then we can talk about some of those. And just what I jotted down were synchronous versus asynchronous and how maybe we can combine them into blended. Then the other one was using Zoom for language teaching. We can just share tips and tricks because it turns out that I don't know as much as I thought I did. Then if somebody is interested, using Top Hat for teaching as well. And what else do I have there? Alternative testing. So assignments, exams, and quizzes, how to do that to minimize cheating and to do it in a more friendly fashion online. And so that's just an idea, just to throw that out at you. Number 10, SAS, that would be the fast. It's a very important topic, the fastest one for me, because I have no solution to that. It sucks when a student tells me that they are entitled to more time. I don't know what to do because in the software that I'm using, I can't create a test for that one student with more time. If I do it, everybody else sees that test and starts completing that test. So I know Avenue can do that, but I'm not willing to migrate my tests from Top Hat into Avenue. So I don't know.
Nikolai, can you like copy and paste a test in Top Hat? Like just make another version of it. So if it's like test 1, you've got test 1 version 2.
Yes, I can copy and
has
assign another. I can do a copy of a test, but then if I make it available to one student by default, if it's a test, everybody else can seize it, and people, after completing their version of the test, they automatically start completing the second version of that test for that one SAS student.
You can't make it visible just to the one student? You can't do that?
You can do it for almost everything except for proctored tests.
What about a non-proctored test or another type of assignment? Like if you
then it would have to be a non-proctored test, and then I can not be sure that we're still talking about academic integrity there.
I know. You know what I found personally with all of this? It's almost like we have to give up a certain amount of control. I mean, it feels really strange. And sometimes you just have to say, well, it is what it is. And I hate to give that as an answer because I sound like I'm defeated. I'm not. I just, with regard to the SAS accommodations, I think that the more you can put up online that is asynchronous, the better for those accommodations. I just found that really helped because I had much fewer problems this term, even though I had more students in the summer than I had in previous summers. And previous summers I had 24 students, right? This summer I had almost 60, but I had fewer problems that way. I had other problems, right? Which I'm not going to go into now. And they weren't serious ones, but.
My course evaluations were horrible. They were the worst I ever got in the past 10 years. However, 13% of the students answered. So six of 40 something.
Yeah, that's not an accurate, I mean, what does it mean, right?
Yeah, so we'll see. All right, it's 11:43, and I know we wanted to be done at 11:30. Does anybody else have comments, suggestions about SAS accommodations? And if we don't, then thank you very much for attending. I will try to figure out what the next meeting will be about. We'll send everybody emails. I'll also email the link to the video recording of this. And we will go from there. So by default, next Friday, same place, same time, we'll just narrow down the topics, and we'll be able to talk about these things in more detail. Thank you all. I learned so much today, and I truly enjoyed talking to other people.
Thank you. Me too.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And I guess see you next Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.